before you listen any further, let me ask you something that has been echoing inside you longer than you realize. Have you wondered why you are still here after everything you've been through? Why you didn't quit when quitting would have made sense? Why something inside you kept standing even when you were tired of standing? You thought it was habit. You thought it was survival. But it was me. I have been closer than your breath. Even in the moments you thought you were alone. I did not choose you when you felt strong. I did not wait for you to feel ready, confident, or certain. I chose you long before you learned how to hide your fear behind a calm face. Long before you learned how to keep moving while quietly hurting. I chose you when your heart was still forming questions you didn't know how to ask. And I have never withdrawn that choice, not once, not for a single moment. You keep telling yourself that if you had been more disciplined, more faithful, more consistent, then maybe you would understand why your life looks the way it does. But listen to me now. Your confusion does not cancel my calling. Your weakness does not disqualify you. I did not miscalculate when I formed you. I did not overlook your sensitivity, your doubts, your slow healing. I wove those things into you on purpose because the work ahead of you requires a heart that knows how to feel deeply, not just perform loudly. You think I am waiting for you to become someone else before I can move. That is not true. I've been waiting for you to stop believing that readiness comes before obedience. You were never meant to arrive polished. You were meant to arrive willing. Every time you stood up again when you wanted to disappear, you were being shaped for this moment. Every silent prayer you whispered when words felt pointless still reached me. I know you look at others and wonder why their path seems clearer, faster, more celebrated. But I did not design your life to be obvious. I designed it to be rooted. What grows deep does not rush the surface. What lasts is not built in haste. You are being strengthened in ways you could not see, because the weight you are about to carry requires stability, not speed. There were nights you thought I had forgotten you. Days you replayed old decisions, wondering where things went wrong. But nothing was wasted. Even the detours served you. Even the waiting refined you. I was teaching you discernment while you thought you were being delayed. I was teaching you endurance while you thought you were being overlooked. You keep asking me for clarity about the future, but I have been focused on forming your character. Breakthrough without grounding would have crushed you. Promotion without healing would have hollowed you out. I protected you by pacing your growth, even when it felt like silence. My quiet was not absence, it was intention. You are not standing at the edge of something by accident. This moment did not sneak up on you. I aligned your steps long before you noticed the shift in your spirit. The restlessness you've been feeling is not anxiety. It is readiness waking up. Something in you already knows that what once felt impossible is beginning to feel near. I chose you because you learned how to keep your heart soft in a hard season, because you did not let bitterness become your identity, because you kept choosing honesty over image, even when no one was watching. That matters more than you know. Heaven takes notice of faithfulness that never makes noise. So breathe. You do not need to rush me. You do not need to prove yourself. You are not behind. You are positioned. I am not asking you to become fearless. I am asking you to trust me with the fear you already have. This moment is not asking for perfection. It is asking for your yes. And I chose you for this moment because you are exactly who I need you to be right now. You feel it, don't you? The subtle shift inside you that you can't quite explain. A sense that something is changing, even though your surroundings may look the same. You've been asking yourself why this moment feels heavier, more charged, more alive than the ones before it. Let me tell you the truth you've been circling around. This moment is not random. You are not drifting into it. You are being led. Nothing in your life has unfolded by accident. Not the timing, not the delays, not the intersections where you met the right people or the wrong ones. I see the entire path, even the turns you regret and the pauses you questioned. What you called coincidence was alignment. What you called interruption was redirection. I was arranging more than you could see while you were simply trying to survive the day. You've wondered why certain doors closed just as you were reaching for them. Why answers came slower than you prayed for. Why progress felt uneven, unpredictable. But understand this, I was not withholding from you. I was positioning you. Some doors closed because you were not meant to shrink yourself to fit what was behind them. Some answers waited because your heart needed space to grow strong enough to carry what was coming. This moment holds weight because it stands at the intersection of preparation and purpose. Everything before now was shaping you for what requires discernment, humility, and courage. You are learning how to listen, not just to me, but to what stirs within you when you are quiet. You are learning how to pause instead of panic, how to trust instead of grasp. Those lessons are not small. They are the foundation. You think you should have arrived sooner. You think you should be further along, but I measure time differently than you do. I do not rush what must endure. I do not hurry what must last. The timeline you keep comparing yourself to was never written for you. Your life moves according to my wisdom, not your anxiety. This moment feels intense because you are standing closer to alignment than you have ever been before. When purpose approaches, everything becomes louder: your doubts, your memories, your questions. That does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are close. Resistance often rises right before clarity does. Fear grows louder when it senses it is losing control. I have been drawing you inward, not to isolate you, but to focus you. That pulling back you felt was not loss. It was gathering. I was consolidating your strength, sharpening your awareness, quieting the noise that distracted you from your calling. What you are stepping into requires presence, not distraction. Depth, not performance. You didn't miss the signal. You are hearing it now. The reason you can't shake the sense that something is about to happen is because something already has inside you. Your discernment has matured. Your spirit has become more sensitive. You are noticing what you used to ignore, questioning what you used to accept. That is growth. That is readiness. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. A seed does its most important work underground. What looks like nothing from the surface is often transformation at the deepest level. I have been doing essential work in you while you waited for visible signs, and now the ground is shifting. This moment matters because it is asking something of you, not effort, not perfection, but awareness. Pay attention to what brings you peace instead of pressure. Notice what draws you closer to truth rather than applause. I am guiding you through nudges, not force, through clarity, not chaos. You are here because you were meant to be here. Right now, with the wisdom you've gained, the scars that taught you compassion, and the faith that survived uncertainty. This moment is not passing you by, it is opening itself to you. Stand still for a breath. Let go of the urge to rush ahead. What is unfolding does not need to be chased. It needs to be received. There is a part of your story almost no one has seen, and yet it is the part I value deeply, the hours when no one was applauding you, the seasons when obedience felt lonely, when doing the right thing brought no immediate reward. You thought those moments were insignificant because they were quiet. But listen to me now. Nothing done with faith is ever wasted, even when it is unseen. I brought you into the hidden place on purpose, not to punish you, not to forget you, but to shape you without distraction. In the quiet, your motives were revealed. In the stillness, your heart learned how to listen. When there was no audience, you discovered whether you would still choose integrity, still choose truth, still choose me. That kind of formation cannot happen in noise. You felt overlooked while others advanced. You watched doors open for people who seemed less careful, less patient, less burdened by conscience. And sometimes you wondered if you were being foolish for staying faithful when shortcuts were available. But I was teaching you restraint. I was teaching you discernment. You were learning how to say no when it would have been easier to say yes. That strength will matter more than you know. The hidden place refined you. It slowed you down enough to feel what you used to avoid. You faced fears you once buried under busyness. You sat with questions you once distracted yourself from. You learned how to endure without numbing your heart. That is not weakness. That is maturity forming quietly. There were tears you wiped away without telling anyone. Prayers you stopped finishing because words ran out. Moments when you showed up simply because quitting would have required more energy than continuing. You thought those moments were proof that you were barely holding on. I saw them as evidence that you were becoming resilient. I know you questioned whether any of it mattered, whether anyone noticed your consistency, your honesty, your restraint. But heaven records what the world ignores. I see faithfulness that never trends, obedience that never goes viral, courage that never gets celebrated, and I treasure it deeply. You were learning to depend on me without applause, to trust me without reassurance, to stay steady without constant confirmation. That kind of faith does not form overnight. It forms in long stretches of silence, where trust becomes a choice rather than a feeling. Do you remember how you changed during that season? How you became less reactive, more thoughtful? How you stopped chasing validation and started listening inward? That was not you losing passion. That was you gaining depth. I was stripping away what was loud, so what was true could rise. The hidden place also protected you. Had you stepped forward earlier, you would have carried responsibilities your heart was not yet ready to hold. Exposure without grounding would have wounded you. Visibility without healing would have fractured you. I delayed your unveiling because I love you, not because I doubted you. What you gained in secret will sustain you in the open. The patience you built will anchor you when pressure comes. The discernment you developed will guard you when choices multiply. The humility you learned will keep you grounded when recognition arrives. You are being equipped, not excluded. You may not see all the fruit yet, but it is already forming. Roots grow before branches appear. Strength is established before weight is added. I was preparing you to stand, not just to rise. So do not despise the hidden years. They were sacred. They were purposeful. They were necessary. And now, as you step forward, you will carry something rare, not noise, not haste, but quiet authority born in places only I could see. You were never forgotten in the hidden place. You were being prepared there. I know the places in you that still ache when you remember. The moments you replay late at night, wondering how things unraveled, how words spoken in haste or choices made in fear seemed to change the direction of your life. You carry those memories quietly, afraid that what broke you might define you. But hear me clearly now. What wounded you did not disqualify you. It shaped you, but it did not end you. You have been harder on yourself than I have ever been. You measured your worth by outcomes instead of obedience, by results instead of surrender. When things fell apart, you assumed it meant you had failed beyond repair. But I do not see failure the way you do. I see hearts. I see intention. I see the way you kept reaching for truth, even when your hands were trembling. There are scars you try not to touch because they remind you of who you were before everything changed. You grieve the version of yourself that trusted more easily, dreamed more freely, loved without guarding every corner of your heart. But I have not lost that version of you. I have refined it. What broke open your heart also made room for compassion, wisdom, and discernment you did not have before. You think your mistakes disqualified you from being used. You think your past put limits on what I can do through you, but I am not intimidated by your history. I step directly into broken places because that is where my grace is most visible. The cracks you try to hide are the very places where my light enters. You learned things through pain that comfort never could have taught you. You learned how fragile people can be, how words carry weight, how silence can wound just as deeply as betrayal. Those lessons did not come cheaply, and I do not waste what cost you so much. You are not weaker because you were hurt. You are more aware, more grounded, more capable of seeing others clearly. There were moments you blamed yourself for everything that went wrong, even what was never yours to carry. You absorbed guilt that did not belong to you. You tried to take responsibility for outcomes that were shaped by other people's choices. Release that weight now. You were not meant to carry it. I do not ask you to pay debts I already settled. I know you fear that if people really saw your broken places, they would turn away, that they would question your credibility, your strength, your calling. But the work I am doing through you does not depend on appearing flawless. It depends on being honest. Brokenness surrendered to me becomes a source of authority, not shame. You survived things you thought would end you. You stood back up when staying down felt safer. That endurance was not accidental. It is part of your testimony. Even if you never speak it aloud, you understand pain without becoming hardened by it. That balance is rare, and it is powerful. Do not despise the parts of you that were shaped by hardship. I am not asking you to glorify pain, but to recognize what grew out of it. You carry empathy where others carry judgment, patience where others rush, depth where others skim the surface. Those qualities are not liabilities. They are gifts refined by fire. Your story does not disqualify you, it qualifies you. The very places you thought made you unfit are the places I will use to reach others who feel unseen, misunderstood, or ashamed. Nothing in your past has the authority to cancel what I have spoken over your future. You are not damaged goods. You are not behind because you were wounded. You are becoming whole in ways that matter deeply. And I am not finished with you, not even close. You keep looking at the clock of your life and telling yourself a story that is quietly exhausting you. You tell yourself that you should be further by now, that if you had made different choices, healed faster, believed stronger, everything would already be settled. You measure your days against imagined deadlines and feel the weight of being behind. But listen to me carefully now. You are not late. You are aligned. You assume alignment feels like speed, like momentum everyone can see, but alignment often feels like restraint. It feels like waiting when you could run, like holding steady when you could force something open. I did not slow you down to frustrate you. I slowed you down to synchronize you. What you are stepping into requires precision, not haste. You have not missed your window. You have not arrived after the opportunity passed. What is meant for you is not fragile. It does not vanish because of one wrong turn or one delayed season. I am not bound by the timelines you fear. I move with intention, not urgency. And I have been guiding you with far more care than you realize. You look back and see pauses that felt like setbacks, but I see calibration. Every season where things felt stuck was a season where something was being adjusted. Your discernment, your expectations, your capacity to carry responsibility without losing yourself. I was aligning your inner world with what your outer world is about to require. If I had moved you sooner, you would have arrived before you were ready to remain. Arrival without endurance leads to collapse. Opportunity without maturity leads to regret. I love you too much to place you somewhere you would have to survive instead of thrive. So I aligned you carefully. Even when it felt slow, you compare your journey to others and assume the difference is ability or favor. But I do not build lives by comparison. I build them by calling. What looks like delay in your story is protection in disguise. I was keeping you from paths that would have cost you your peace, your integrity, your joy. You did not miss out, you were spared. Notice how your desires have changed, how what once excited you no longer satisfies, how you crave substance over speed, depth over noise. That shift did not happen by accident. It is a sign that alignment is taking place. I am not just moving you forward, I am moving you into the right position. You are exactly where you need to be to recognize what comes next. Had it appeared earlier, you might not have discerned it. Had it come faster, you might have mishandled it. But now, your spirit is tuned. Your heart is steadier. Your values are clearer. That is alignment at work. Stop apologizing to yourself for the pace of your life. Stop carrying shame for seasons that looked unproductive but were quietly essential. I do not measure progress the way you do. I measure faithfulness, growth, and readiness. By that measure, you are not behind, you are prepared. What is coming will not require you to rush or scramble. It will meet you where you are because you have been brought to this place on purpose. Trust the positioning. Trust the timing. You are not late to your life. You are standing exactly where my plan and your becoming meet. You have wondered more times than you admit why I did not answer sooner. Why prayers lingered in the air unanswered. Why relief seemed just out of reach when you were already tired. You tried to be patient, but there were moments when patience felt like another burden. Hear me now, gently and clearly. I allowed the delay to strengthen your roots, not to weaken your hope. What you call delay, I call reinforcement. I was not standing still while you waited. I was working beneath the surface, where growth is slow but lasting. Quick answers can feel merciful, but they do not always make you steady. I was anchoring you so that when movement came, you would not be shaken by it. You were learning how to remain when everything in you wanted resolution, how to keep trusting without constant reassurance, how to stay open without becoming fragile. Those lessons were not easy, but they were necessary. Depth is built over time, not granted in moments, and the weight you are about to carry requires depth. You asked me to remove the struggle, but instead, I taught you how to stand within it, not because I wanted you to suffer, but because I wanted you to grow strong without becoming hardened. Strength that forms slowly does not crumble when pressure comes. It holds. There were moments when you almost settled, almost accepted less than what you knew was right for you, almost convinced yourself that endurance meant resignation. But something in you resisted. That resistance was not stubbornness. It was discernment taking root. You were learning the difference between patience and compromise. I know the waiting exhausted you. It drained your energy, tested your faith, forced you to confront parts of yourself you would rather have avoided, but it also revealed your capacity. You discovered you could endure more than you thought. You learned how to draw strength from me instead of circumstances. That dependence was not weakness, it was alignment. If I had moved faster, your roots would have remained shallow. Shallow roots cannot sustain growth when storms arrive. I was preparing you not just for blessing, but for longevity, for stability, for a life that does not collapse under its own expansion. You think the delay cost you time, but it saved you from instability. It saved you from being lifted before you were grounded. It saved you from carrying responsibilities that would have overwhelmed you at an earlier stage. I was not punishing you by waiting. I was protecting you by pacing. Notice how differently you respond now. How you pause before reacting. How you weigh decisions with more wisdom. How you listen more carefully to me and to what is happening inside you. Those changes did not come from ease. They came from time spent being formed. I know you felt overlooked while others moved ahead. But visibility without foundation is fragile. Advancement without preparation is dangerous. I was building something in you that could not be rushed, and now what is rooted deeply is ready to grow freely. The delay was not denial, it was design. Every moment of waiting added strength to what will soon emerge. You were not stalled, you were being established. Trust what the waiting has produced. Your roots are strong now. And because of that, when movement comes, it will not uproot you. I see the weight you have been carrying, even when you stopped talking about it. The tiredness that settled deeper than your body, the kind that sleep does not fix. You learned how to function while weary, how to smile while depleted, how to keep going because stopping felt impossible. But listen to me now, with gentleness and truth. What you have been carrying is almost finished. You are not weak for feeling exhausted. You were faithful. You kept showing up long after the excitement faded, long after motivation disappeared. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. That kind of endurance leaves a mark, not of failure, but of honor. I have seen every step you took while feeling empty, every responsibility you carried, while quietly asking how much longer you could hold on. There were days when the weight felt heavier than your strength, when you questioned whether continuing was wisdom or stubbornness. But I was teaching you how to lean without collapsing, how to persevere without losing your heart. You were not meant to carry this season forever. You were meant to learn what it costs and what it produces. The heaviness you feel now is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that the season is reaching its end, just as muscles ache before rest, just as night deepens before dawn. What you are experiencing is transition. The burden feels heavier because it is about to be lifted. I know you feared that this exhaustion meant something was wrong with you, that maybe you were not strong enough, not resilient enough, not faithful enough. But fatigue is not failure. It is often evidence of long obedience, of sustained effort, of love that did not quit when it could have protected itself by withdrawing. You have carried responsibility with little relief. You have carried uncertainty without clear answers. You have carried hope while disappointment tried to drain it from you. And still, you remained open. Still, you kept believing that something more was possible, even when you couldn't see how it would arrive. That faith mattered more than you know. You do not have to carry this alone anymore. What once required all of your strength will soon require far less. I am not asking you to push harder. I am asking you to hold on a little longer, not with tension, but with trust. The release is closer than it feels. Pay attention to the small signs of relief beginning to appear. A moment of peace where there used to be only pressure. A quiet assurance replacing constant strain. These are not illusions. They are indicators that the weight is shifting, that responsibility is being redistributed, that you are no longer meant to carry everything yourself. You are allowed to rest without guilt. You are allowed to exhale without fear that everything will fall apart. I am steadying what you have been holding. I am stepping into the spaces where your strength has been stretched thin. This season has asked much of you, and you answered with perseverance. Now, something gentler is approaching, something lighter, something that will not require the same strain. You will not always have to carry this much weight to move forward. Do not interpret this weariness as defeat. It is the sign of a chapter closing. The load is about to change. The pressure is about to ease. And you will soon realize that what once felt unbearable has already begun to loosen its grip. Hold steady. You are almost through this. There are things already moving on your behalf that you cannot see yet. And that is unsettling for you because you like clarity. You like confirmation. You like to know where each step is leading before you take it. But listen to me now. Your obedience has been opening doors long before you ever stood in front of them. You thought the small choices didn't matter, the quiet yes when no one was watching, the decision to stay honest when cutting corners would have helped you, the moments you chose patience over reaction, humility over proving yourself, integrity over immediate gain. You assumed those were insignificant, too small to change anything. But obedience does not need to be loud to be powerful. It only needs to be real. Every time you followed my nudge instead of your fear, something shifted. Every time you chose what was right instead of what was easy, alignment increased. You were setting things in motion without realizing it. Doors do not always open in front of you. Sometimes they open ahead of you, preparing the way before you arrive. You expected obedience to produce instant results, but often it produces quiet momentum. It rearranges circumstances slowly. It softens hearts you have never met. It creates connections you cannot trace. You obeyed without guarantees, and that kind of trust carries weight in the unseen. There were moments you questioned whether listening to me was costing you opportunities, whether staying faithful was delaying your progress. But obedience never robs you, it reroutes you. What you thought you were losing was actually clearing space for what fits you better. You didn't obey perfectly. You hesitated. You questioned. You doubted yourself more than once. And still, you obeyed. That matters. I am not looking for flawless followers. I am looking for willing hearts. You moved forward even when you weren't sure. That movement created access you couldn't yet perceive. Right now, you may feel like nothing has changed, but the ground beneath you has shifted. Conversations are aligning. Circumstances are adjusting. Timing is being arranged. You are being considered in rooms you are not yet in, not because you demanded it, but because your obedience positioned you for it. You don't need to strive to make this happen. You don't need to announce yourself or force recognition. What has been opened cannot be closed by silence or delay. The doors meant for you respond to alignment, not effort. Trust that the obedience you offered when it was inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unseen has already begun to speak on your behalf. It has created pathways you will soon walk without resistance. What felt like nothing was actually preparation. Stay attentive. Stay responsive. You do not need to see the whole picture yet. The doors are opening even now. You have sensed resistance at moments when you were simply trying to move forward. Subtle opposition, unexplained discouragement, a heaviness that appeared just as clarity began to form, and you wondered if that meant you were doing something wrong. Hear me carefully now, without fear or exaggeration. Resistance does not mean you are off course. Often, it means you are aligned. Not every obstacle is a warning. Some are confirmations. When you begin to step into what matters, what once ignored you begins to react. That reaction is not authority over you. It is awareness of you, and awareness does not equal power. It only reveals significance. I did not allow opposition because you are fragile. I allowed it because you are capable, because you are learning discernment, not panic. Courage, not impulsiveness. I am not asking you to fight what rises against you. I am asking you to recognize it without giving it control over your spirit. There were moments you felt unusually tired after deciding to move forward. Moments when doubt intensified right after you chose obedience. That is not coincidence. But do not interpret it as danger. Interpret it as confirmation that your movement carries weight. What has no purpose is rarely opposed. Still, I do not want you to become vigilant in fear. I want you to become steady in truth. Opposition does not get to dictate your pace, your peace, or your direction. You do not need to react to every resistance you feel. Sometimes, the most powerful response is to remain unmoved. You are not being targeted because you are weak. You are being noticed because you are becoming consistent. Because your faith is no longer reactive, it is rooted, and rooted faith does not panic when pressure appears. It remains. I have been teaching you how to discern the difference between conviction and accusation. Conviction leads you forward with clarity. Accusation leaves you stuck in shame and hesitation. What you have been feeling lately is not conviction. It is distraction trying to slow your progress. Do not overinterpret resistance. Do not magnify it. You do not need to study what opposes you to overcome it. You need to remain aligned with what I have already spoken to you. Awareness without fear is strength. I have not left you exposed. I have not placed you in danger without covering. You are protected by discernment, by wisdom, by timing that does not rush ahead of grace. You are not walking alone into uncertainty. I am walking with you through clarity. You will notice something if you pay attention. The resistance does not last. It rises, it presses, and then it fades when you do not give it authority. That is because it was never meant to stop you, only to test whether you would shrink or stand. You are learning how to stand without force, how to continue without aggression, how to move forward without needing to prove anything. That is maturity. That is authority forming quietly. So do not let resistance make you smaller. Let it confirm that your life matters more than you realized. What is emerging in you has substance, and substance attracts attention, but it also endures. Remain steady. You are not in danger. You are in transition. There are things in your life you quietly labeled as permanent. Limits you accepted because they lasted so long you assumed they were unchangeable. Patterns you learned to manage instead of question. You adjusted your expectations, told yourself to be realistic, trained your heart not to hope too boldly, but listen to me now. With openness and courage, I am rewriting what you thought was permanent. What felt fixed was not fixed. What seemed immovable was only paused. I allowed some things to remain long enough for you to stop defining yourself by them. You thought endurance meant accepting them forever. But endurance was only teaching you how to stand, while change was being prepared. You adapted because you had to survive. You learned how to work around limitations, how to function within boundaries you did not choose. That was wisdom for a season. But do not confuse survival strategies with destiny. What helped you endure is not what will define where you are going. I know you fear disappointment. You learned to keep hope contained because hoping freely once hurt you. So you made peace with this is just how it is. But I am not limited by what has lasted a long time. Time does not intimidate me. History does not restrict me. I step into situations others have written off and breathe new direction into them. You assumed certain doors would never open because they never had. Certain conversations would never change. Certain burdens would never lift. But permanence is not determined by duration. It is determined by purpose. And some things were only allowed to stay until they taught you what you needed to learn. What I am rewriting is not only external. I am rewriting the way you see yourself, the internal narratives you've lived under, the quiet beliefs that told you to expect less, to brace instead of believe. Those scripts are being replaced with truth, not suddenly, but steadily. You may notice shifts that seem small at first. A thought you no longer accept. A reaction that doesn't rise the way it used to. A sense of possibility where there was only resignation. Do not dismiss these moments. They are evidence that rewriting has already begun. I am not tearing down your life. I am reworking it, refining what needs to remain, and removing what no longer fits. This process does not require force. It requires trust. Trust that what I am changing is not destabilizing you. It is freeing you. Some of what you called permanent was actually protective for a time. It kept you from being stretched before you were ready. But that season has shifted. You are not the same person you were when those limits formed. You are stronger now, wiser, more discerning. You can carry what once would have overwhelmed you. Do not cling to old definitions just because they are familiar. Familiar does not mean faithful. Comfort does not always mean calling. I am inviting you to loosen your grip on what you learned to live with, so you can receive what you were meant to live into. Change may feel unsettling because it challenges the agreements you made with disappointment, but I am not asking you to pretend everything is easy. I am asking you to stay open while I move, to resist the urge to predict outcomes based on past patterns. What I am rewriting will not erase your story, it will redeem it. The very places you thought were evidence of limitation will become proof of transformation. You will look back and realize that what once defined the boundaries of your life became the testimony of my faithfulness. Do not fear this rewriting. It is not loss. It is restoration taking a new form, and it is already underway. What is coming into your life is not only meant to comfort you, it is meant to entrust you. I need you to hear this clearly, because misunderstanding it would place unnecessary fear on your heart. I am not simply bringing relief. I am inviting you into authority. And authority does not arrive loudly. It arrives quietly after formation. You have prayed for change, for breakthrough, for movement, but beneath those prayers, I have been shaping something deeper, your capacity to steward what comes next. Blessing without responsibility would leave you empty. Relief without growth would leave you unchanged. I am not interested in momentary excitement. I am preparing you for sustained impact. Authority is not control. It is clarity. It is the ability to stand steady when others panic, to respond thoughtfully when others react emotionally, to carry influence without being consumed by it. You have been learning this slowly, sometimes painfully, through situations that required restraint rather than dominance. There were moments when you wanted me to act on your behalf immediately, to intervene, to correct, to vindicate, but I often waited, not because injustice didn't matter, but because I was teaching you how to remain grounded even when outcomes were delayed. That steadiness is the soil where authority grows. You are not stepping into a role that will inflate your ego. You are stepping into a posture that will require humility, wisdom, and discernment. You will notice that people begin to listen differently, that your words carry weight not because they are forceful, but because they are measured. That presence alone shifts atmospheres without you needing to assert yourself. This is not about position. It is about responsibility. Responsibility to remain aligned with truth when it would be easier to conform. Responsibility to protect what is entrusted to you without becoming rigid or fearful. Responsibility to serve without losing yourself. You have already been practicing authority in quiet ways. In how you chose peace instead of proving a point. In how you walked away from arguments that would have drained you. In how you refused to let bitterness dictate your decisions. Those choices were not passive, they were formative. Authority does not announce itself, it reveals itself through consistency, through integrity that remains intact under pressure, through discernment that knows when to speak and when to stay silent. You have been learning this language without realizing it. I am not elevating you above others. I am anchoring you within yourself so that when influence comes, it does not pull you off center, so that when responsibility increases, it does not crush you. You will not need to defend your place. You will simply occupy it. Some people will misunderstand this season. They will assume you are becoming distant, reserved, or selective. But what they are sensing is not withdrawal, it is grounding. You are no longer driven by urgency. You are led by discernment. That shift is essential. Do not rush to label what is happening. Let it unfold. Let authority grow naturally, without performance. You do not need to imitate anyone else's strength. Yours is forming in its own way, quiet, stable, resilient. You are not just receiving something. You are becoming someone. And who you are becoming will matter long after the moment passes. Stay attentive. Stay humble. Stay grounded. What is being entrusted to you will be sustained by who you are, not just what you receive. There is a reason your journey has felt heavier than necessary at times, and it is not because you were meant to suffer endlessly. It is because your life was never meant to end with you. What you have been carrying, learning, and surviving is larger than personal victory. Others will be helped because you did not quit, because you stayed, because you endured, because you kept your heart open when closing it would have been easier. You thought you were simply trying to survive your own season, but all along, you were gathering understanding that cannot be taught quickly. You are learning what it feels like to be unseen, unheard, misunderstood, stretched thin, and still choosing to remain honest. That kind of knowledge cannot be borrowed. It can only be lived, and it becomes a bridge for others who will one day recognize themselves in you. You do not need a platform to matter. You do not need a title to influence the way you listen, the way you speak with patience, the way you refuse to reduce people to their worst moments. These things will reach farther than you realize. Someone will breathe easier because you did not harden. Someone will stay because you did not leave. Someone will believe again because you chose to keep believing when it was costly. You worried that your suffering was isolated, that it served no purpose beyond teaching you how to cope. But I do not allow endurance without intention. What you survived is shaping how you will carry others, not by fixing them, but by standing with them. You will recognize pain without being overwhelmed by it. You will offer presence instead of answers. That is rare. That is needed. You may never know all the ways your perseverance becomes someone else's turning point. Sometimes it will be obvious, a conversation, a shared moment, a word spoken at the right time. Other times it will be invisible. A choice you make will quietly shift a chain of events you never see the end of. Do not underestimate the reach of a life that remains faithful. There were moments you wanted to give up, not because you were weak, but because you were tired of carrying weight no one else seemed to notice. You questioned whether continuing made any difference at all, but every step you took, while tired, added substance to your spirit. It taught you how to show up without needing applause. That steadiness will become safety for others. You are not responsible for saving anyone. That burden is not yours, but you are being shaped to reflect truth in a way that feels accessible, grounded, human. People will sense that you understand without needing to explain how. They will trust you because you did not rush your own healing. Do not minimize what it took for you to stay. Staying when leaving felt justified required courage. Choosing hope again after disappointment required faith. Continuing to love when it would have been easier to withdraw required strength. Those choices did not disappear into nothing. They became part of who you are, and who you are becoming will matter deeply to others. Your perseverance is not just about reward. It is about readiness. You are being prepared to walk with others without losing yourself, to offer guidance without control, to stand firm without becoming rigid. That balance is not accidental. It is formed through lived experience. One day, you will look back and realize that the season you thought was only about survival became the source of your greatest usefulness, not because you were perfect, but because you were present. Not because you had answers, but because you had compassion. You did not quit, and because of that, something greater than you will continue through you. What comes next will not feel like relief at first. It will feel like movement, and movement requires trust. I need you to understand this before you step forward. The next season will ask you to trust me more than it asks you to feel safe. Fear will try to interpret change as danger, but change is not your enemy. It is the language of growth. You have learned how to survive uncertainty by controlling what you could, by planning, anticipating, bracing yourself for disappointment. Those habits protected you once, but they will not carry you where you are going. What lies ahead cannot be managed the way the past was. It must be trusted into being. Trust does not mean recklessness. It means releasing the need to see every step before taking the next one. You will be invited into decisions that feel slightly beyond your comfort, not because you are unprepared, but because preparation has already happened. Fear will call this risk. I call it readiness. You may notice anxiety rise as opportunity approaches. Not because something is wrong, but because you are used to standing still when things feel uncertain. Forward motion will stretch your sense of stability. Do not confuse discomfort with warning. Growth often feels unfamiliar before it feels secure. I am not asking you to ignore wisdom. I am asking you not to let fear disguise itself as wisdom. Fear will urge you to wait until everything feels guaranteed. Wisdom will invite you to move when clarity is sufficient. Even if certainty is not complete, learn to discern the difference. You will not need to abandon everything at once. The trust I am asking for will come in steps, not leaps. Small yeses, measured movement, willingness to respond rather than retreat. Each step will confirm the last. Each act of trust will quiet fears, voice a little more. There will be moments when your instinct is to pull back, to preserve what you have rather than risk losing it. But preservation is not always protection. Sometimes it is limitation. What you are being invited into cannot be entered while holding tightly to what no longer fits. Fear will tell you that you are about to lose something. Trust will show you that you are about to gain clarity, depth, and freedom. Fear speaks urgently. Trust speaks steadily. Pay attention to the tone, not just the message. I will not rush you. I will not force you, but I will invite you again and again to choose movement over paralysis, openness over control, faith over prediction. Each invitation is an opportunity to loosen fear's grip. What is ahead will require you to rely on me in ways that feel more relational than strategic. You will learn to listen more closely, respond more honestly, and move more intuitively. This is not chaos. It is alignment deepening. Do not wait for fear to disappear before you move. Move while trusting me with the fear you carry. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision not to let fear decide. What comes next will stretch you, but it will not break you. It will ask for trust, but it will give clarity. It will challenge your sense of control, but it will anchor your spirit. Stay open, stay responsive. The path forward is unfolding as you walk it. You have been afraid that you might miss it, that the moment would arrive quietly, slip past you while you were distracted, uncertain, or tired. You imagined that breakthrough would require perfect awareness, flawless timing, or constant vigilance. But listen to me now, and let this settle your spirit. You will recognize the moment when it arrives. It will not confuse you. It will not rush you. It will come with a clarity that feels different from excitement and different from fear. I do not lead my children into transformation through panic. I lead them through peace. The moment you have been waiting for will not demand that you scramble or prove yourself. It will feel like alignment clicking into place, like something finally fitting instead of being forced. You will know it not because everything is loud, but because because something inside you becomes quiet. You have learned to distrust ease because struggle became familiar. You became cautious of peace, wondering if it meant complacency or risk. But the peace that accompanies my movement is not passive. It is confirming. It settles you without dulling you. It steadies you without slowing you. When this moment arrives, you will not need to convince yourself it is right. You will recognize it by the absence of inner resistance. There will be an invitation, subtle, not dramatic. An opening that feels natural rather than pressured. A sense of rightness that does not rely on external validation. You will not need to rush into it out of fear of missing your chance. What is meant for you will remain open long enough for you to step into it with discernment. You are worried that doubt will cloud your judgment. But doubt does not disqualify you from recognizing truth. You have grown in discernment. You have learned the difference between anxiety and intuition, between urgency and guidance. The moment you are approaching will not carry the sharp edge of panic. It will carry steadiness. You may expect fireworks or dramatic confirmation, but often recognition comes quietly. It comes as relief instead of adrenaline, as peace instead of pressure, as a sense of this is it that does not need explanation. Trust that familiarity with my voice will guide you more reliably than emotion ever could. Do not overanalyze the moment when it comes. Overthinking can blur what clarity reveals. Allow yourself to notice how your body responds, how tension releases instead of tightening, how breath deepens instead of shortening. These are not small signs. They are indicators of alignment. You will not be asked to abandon wisdom or caution, but you will be invited to move forward without needing absolute certainty. Recognition does not require complete understanding. It requires trust, and trust grows from relationship, not from control. I am not hiding this moment from you. I am not testing your alertness. I am walking you toward it. You will arrive aware, present, and ready. The clarity you fear you lack is already forming within you. When the moment arrives, you will not feel pushed. You will feel led, and that difference matters. Be at ease. You are not going to miss what was designed to meet you. Your body is sinking now in a way that does not require effort. Muscles loosen without instruction. Breath finds its own rhythm, slow and quiet, like it remembers how to do this without being told. There is nothing you need to adjust, nothing to fix. Sleep is not something you do, it is something you allow. And right now, you are allowing it. Thoughts may still drift through, but they no longer ask for attention. They float past like distant lights, fading on their own. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to stop them. The mind can wander while the deeper part of you listens. That deeper part is awake, calm, receptive. With every gentle breath, resistance softens, not because you push it away, but because it is no longer needed. The part of you that was holding on relaxes its grip. The part that was watching, checking, waiting, begins to rest. There is a quiet understanding settling in now. Nothing is required of you in this moment. Sleep deepens naturally. Awareness becomes wider, slower, softer. You may feel heavy or light or pleasantly distant. All of these are signs that the doorway is opening. The conscious mind steps back. The subconscious steps forward, not dramatically, not suddenly, but gently, like it has always been here. As resistance dissolves, something else takes its place. Ease, neutrality, a quiet sense of it's okay now. You are no longer trying to make anything happen. And because of that, things are free to move. This is the state where alignment happens without effort. Your body learns something important here. It learns that safety does not require control. That rest does not delay progress. That letting go is not loss. It is access. These understandings do not arrive as thoughts. They arrive as sensations, as calm, as softness in places that were once tense. You do not need to visualize. You do not need to imagine outcomes. The subconscious does not need pictures or plans. It responds to states. And right now, your state is open, rested, unguarded. This is enough. Sleep pulls you deeper, layer by layer. The outer world fades further into the background. Sounds soften, edges blur. Time becomes less defined. And in this space, change happens quietly, without announcing itself. Resistance has nothing to push against now. There is no urgency here, no timeline to manage, no pressure to succeed, only the gentle unfolding that happens when effort steps aside. Your system recalibrates in this depth. Patterns loosen, old emotional responses unwind. Expectations soften, not because you force them to, but because rest makes space for something new to settle in. You are not losing awareness. You are shifting it from surface level thinking to deeper knowing, from effort to allowance, from wanting to having room to receive. If thoughts arise, let them pass. If silence appears, let it stay. Both are welcome. Nothing interrupts this process. Nothing needs correction. Sleep is deep now, and in this depth, resistance dissolves completely, not as a dramatic release, but as a quiet forgetting. The need to try fades. The need to protect fades. The need to control fades. What remains is a steady, calm openness, a neutral readiness, a state where things rearrange naturally. You rest, and while you rest, alignment continues, effortlessly, silently, perfectly timed. Something subtle begins to settle in now. Not a thought, not a decision, but a quiet recognition inside you. A sense that this state you are in is not temporary. It is becoming familiar. The body accepts it first. The mind follows later, without resistance. Your subconscious is very comfortable here. It understands this rhythm, this softness, this absence of pressure. It recognizes this as a new baseline, a new normal. Not because you asked it to change, but because you allowed it to experience something different. There is no announcement when this happens, no sudden realization, just a gentle internal shift, like furniture being rearranged in a room while the lights are dim. Everything is still there, just positioned differently now, and this new arrangement feels natural. The subconscious does not argue. It does not analyze. It learns through repetition of state, through feeling, through safety. And right now, safety is present, so the subconscious accepts this calm openness as default. You may notice the absence of effort feels strangely normal now, as if you've always known how to be here, as if striving was never required in the first place. This is the moment where the nervous system agrees, where it stops scanning, where it stops bracing, where it rests inside the idea that things are allowed to work out. There is no need to label this change. The subconscious does not need names. It needs consistency, and this gentle consistency is being established now, breath by breath, moment by moment, without demand. Old patterns do not fight on their way out. They simply lose relevance. Habits of tension, doubt, urgency, they soften because they no longer serve the state you are in. The subconscious chooses what matches the present environment. And the present environment is calm, receptive, steady. This is how a new normal forms, not through effort, not through discipline, but through repeated exposure to ease, through permission to rest without consequence, through discovering that nothing collapses when you let go. Your system notes this quietly. It stores it. It begins to operate from it. Choices, reactions, expectations begin to recalibrate, not tonight in obvious ways, but gradually, gently, sustainably. Sleep deepens further now. You may feel distant from your body or very inside it. Both are signs of integration. The conscious mind fades further into the background. The subconscious becomes the primary listener. In this listening state, assumptions shift. You no longer assume struggle. You no longer assume delay. You no longer assume that things must be difficult to be real. These assumptions dissolve without confrontation. They are replaced by something quieter: neutrality. Neutrality is powerful. It is the space where new outcomes are accepted without resistance, where receiving feels normal instead of surprising, where success does not create tension. The subconscious accepts this as the new operating system. Not perfect, not forced, just different enough to open new paths. You are not rehearsing anything. You are not affirming anything. You are simply resting inside a state that supports change. And that is enough. Sleep wraps around this new normal gently, like a seal, locking it in not with force, but with familiarity. The more familiar it feels, the more permanent it becomes. Nothing needs to be done tomorrow to maintain this. The subconscious will carry it forward automatically. Into your tone, your posture, your timing, your responses. You continue to sleep deeply now, and as you do, this new normal settles fully, quietly accepted, effortlessly sustained, naturally expressed. There is a noticeable absence now, not something missing, but something no longer present. The sense of waiting has softened so completely that it barely registers anymore. The mind is no longer leaning forward into the future. It is no longer asking when. It is no longer holding space for delay. Waiting dissolves quietly. It does not leave behind emptiness. It leaves behind steadiness, a feeling that things are already in motion, whether you are watching or not, whether you are awake or asleep, whether you think about them or not. Your body responds to this first. There is less tension in anticipation, less tightening around outcomes. The breath is smooth, uninterrupted, unexpectant. The nervous system no longer braces for something to arrive. It rests in the assumption that arrival is already underway. This is not resignation. This is not giving up. This is release, the kind that comes after understanding that nothing needs to be chased to exist. The subconscious notices that you are no longer waiting, and it adjusts accordingly. When waiting disappears, urgency loses its fuel. When urgency fades, resistance has nothing to cling to. What remains is presence, quiet, grounded presence. In this state, time changes texture. Minutes feel less important. Hours feel less defined. There is no internal countdown running in the background, no mental clock checking progress. Just a soft trust that whatever is unfolding does not need supervision. You are no longer placing your life on hold for something to happen. You are no longer postponing peace until a condition is met. The subconscious registers this as freedom, and freedom allows movement. This is the moment where alignment becomes fluid, because there is no longer a gap between now and later. No emotional distance between who you are and what you desire. No sense of not yet hanging in the air. Desires are no longer positioned ahead of you. They are no longer imagined as distant milestones. They feel closer, not because they are being pulled toward you, but because you have stopped pushing them away with expectation. There is relief here, a deep, quiet relief, the kind that settles into the chest and loosens the jaw and softens the eyes. Even in sleep, the body recognizes this shift. The muscles respond. The breath deepens. The mind lets go. Waiting often carries doubt, and doubt requires energy. But now, energy is conserved. It flows inward instead of outward. It nourishes rather than strains. You are no longer rehearsing outcomes, no longer imagining conversations, no longer checking signs. These behaviors fall away naturally when waiting ends. There is nothing to monitor. This does not mean nothing matters. It means things matter less intensely. And because of that, they are allowed to unfold more easily. Sleep becomes even deeper now. The edges of awareness blur further. Thoughts arrive less frequently. When they do, they drift away before forming shape. The subconscious remains engaged, steady, receptive. In this depth, patience transforms. It is no longer something you practice. It becomes something you embody, an inner stillness that does not rush or stall, just moves with what is. You are no longer waiting for proof. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are no longer waiting for certainty. These needs dissolve quietly, like mist under soft light. What remains is trust without effort, a neutral expectation that does not demand confirmation, a calm knowing that does not need reassurance. This state carries forward into how you wake, into how you move through the next day, into how life responds to you differently, subtly, naturally, without announcement. You continue to sleep now, deeply and undisturbed. And in this rest, the absence of waiting becomes permanent. There is nothing you are waiting for anymore. Things are already happening. There is movement happening now that does not need your attention. Not movement you can see, not movement you can track, but quiet alignment unfolding beneath awareness. Like roots growing in the dark, unseen, yet steady and precise. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels stalled. There is a sense of background harmony, a gentle assurance that pieces are shifting into place without effort. You do not need updates. You do not need confirmation. The process does not require your supervision. Your subconscious understands this kind of movement. It recognizes when things are rearranging behind the scenes. It knows that not all progress announces itself. Some progress happens best when unnoticed. This is one of those times. Sleep holds you while alignment continues. The body remains still. The mind drifts. And beneath that stillness, adjustments occur naturally. Beliefs soften. Expectations recalibrate. Old emotional weights lift slightly, not all at once, but enough to change the balance. You are not directing this. You are not steering it. And because of that, it is precise. Free from overthinking, free from interference. There is relief in knowing you do not have to manage this process. That your role is not action, it is rest. And rest is not passive, it is receptive. It allows what is already set in motion to continue uninterrupted. The subconscious registers this trust. It responds by staying open instead of guarded, by allowing instead of resisting, by cooperating instead of questioning. Everything aligning in the background does not mean something dramatic is about to happen. It means things are becoming easier, cleaner, less complicated. Paths simplify, decisions clarify, timing improves. These shifts do not need to wake you. They happen best while you sleep, while the mind is quiet and the body is at ease. You may notice a subtle sense of rightness now. Not excitement, not anticipation, just a calm internal nod that says, "This is okay." That feeling is alignment becoming familiar. There is no urgency attached to it, no pressure to act on it. It simply exists, steady and reassuring. Old patterns that relied on effort loosen further. The need to push, the need to prove, the need to force outcomes. These patterns fade quietly when alignment takes over. Your system learns that support does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives as ease, as fewer obstacles, as better timing without explanation. Sleep deepens again. The boundary between thought and silence thins. Words lose importance. Sensation becomes softer, more distant. In this depth, alignment continues without interruption. Nothing pulls it off course. Nothing interferes. Nothing rushes it. You do not need to remember any of this when you wake. The subconscious will remember for you. It will carry the adjustments forward automatically into your reactions, your tone, your choices. The next time something shifts in your favor, it may feel natural instead of surprising, like it makes sense, like it was always meant to happen this way. That is the result of alignment happening quietly, without resistance. You remain asleep now, held in this gentle background movement. Nothing to do, nothing to check. Everything unfolding exactly as it needs to, unseen, uninterrupted, and already in progress. Something subtle begins to form now, so quietly that it does not interrupt your sleep. It is not a thought, not a realization. It is a shift, small, gentle, almost unnoticeable, yet real. A sense that when you wake, things will feel slightly different, even if you cannot explain why. This change does not announce itself. It does not need to. It settles in like morning light behind closed curtains. Present before you see it, certain before you name it. Your subconscious prepares for waking in a new way, not dramatically, not with expectation, just with openness, the kind that makes the day feel lighter before it even begins. You are not being transformed overnight. You are being adjusted, aligned just enough that familiar things begin to feel easier. That small frictions dissolve, that reactions soften. When you wake, you may notice this first in your body. A calmer breath, a steadier pace, a sense of having rested more deeply than usual. Even if you slept the same number of hours, the quality is different. This is how real change arrives, quietly, without spectacle, without effort. The subconscious carries this forward seamlessly. It does not wait for permission. It does not look for confirmation. It simply expresses what has been integrated. You may find yourself responding instead of reacting, pausing instead of rushing, trusting instead of bracing. These are not decisions you make. They are defaults that emerge. Tomorrow feels lighter because you are no longer carrying the same internal weight. The need to anticipate, the need to guard, the need to prepare for disappointment. These patterns loosen just enough to change how the day unfolds. You may not connect this feeling to sleep. You do not need to. The subconscious does not require recognition to function. It only needs consistency, and that has been established. There is no pressure attached to tomorrow, no expectation to act differently, no demand to be better, just a quiet allowance for ease to show up where it can. Even challenges feel less sharp in this state. They do not press as hard. They do not demand as much energy. You meet them with more space inside. Sleep continues to hold you gently as this readiness settles in. Nothing disturbs it. Nothing interrupts it. The mind remains quiet. The body remains at rest. You are not rehearsing the day ahead. You are not planning outcomes. The subconscious handles what needs to be handled automatically. When morning comes, it will not feel like a reset. It will feel like a continuation, as if something began last night and simply carried on. This is the kind of change that lasts, not because it is forced, but because it is subtle enough to stay. You continue sleeping now, deeply and peacefully. And as you do, this lighter state settles further, becoming part of how you move forward, quietly, naturally, without effort. Life begins to respond to you differently now. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in small, almost invisible ways. It feels as though the world meets you with a softer edge. Interactions carry less friction. Moments flow without as much resistance. And even when nothing outwardly changes, the way you experience it does. This is not coincidence. It is resonance. Your inner state has shifted, and the outer world reflects that shift quietly. People respond to your calm without knowing why. Situations resolve with less effort than expected. Timing feels slightly more cooperative, more forgiving. You are not trying to influence this. You are not adjusting your behavior. You are simply being, and that is enough. The subconscious communicates through tone, posture, pace, presence. And now, your presence carries ease instead of urgency, openness instead of pressure. That change is felt, even if it is not consciously noticed. You may notice that conversations unfold more smoothly, that opportunities appear without being chased, that solutions surface without struggle, not because you asked for them, but because you are no longer blocking them with tension. Life responds to the absence of resistance. It responds to neutrality. It responds to rest. You are no longer pushing against circumstances internally. And because of that, circumstances push back less. Even challenges feel different now. They arrive without intimidation. They pass without leaving the same mark. You move through them with more space inside, enough space to choose rather than react. This is how alignment expresses itself outwardly, not as instant transformation, but as subtle cooperation, as fewer obstacles, as gentler timing, as moments that simply work out. You may not label these changes. You may not even consciously notice them at first, but the subconscious does, and it reinforces what feels supportive, what feels natural. Sleep continues to deepen this pattern. Each breath anchors this state further. Each moment of rest confirms that ease is safe, that receiving does not require effort. The world mirrors what you embody. And right now, you embody calm availability, a readiness without need, an openness without demand. This is why things begin to respond differently. Because you are different, quietly, internally, sustainably. There is nothing to manage here, nothing to optimize, nothing to repeat. This state maintains itself through simplicity. You remain asleep, gently held in this new resonance, and while you rest, life continues to adjust around you naturally, subtly, in ways that feel right when they appear. Nothing pulls you out of sleep. Nothing disrupts this integration. You rest, and life responds. There is a quiet coherence forming now between your inner rest and what moves toward you. Not attraction driven by effort, not pulling or asking, but a natural matching, subtle, steady, inevitable. You begin to attract what aligns with how rested you are, not what you chase, not what you demand, but what resonates with your calm. Rest becomes a signal, a frequency your subconscious emits without words. It communicates safety. It communicates readiness. It communicates trust. And life responds to that signal effortlessly. Things that require strain drift away. Situations that depend on urgency lose relevance. What arrives now feels smoother, lighter, more fitting, as if it belongs in your life without negotiation. This is not about deserving. It is about compatibility. Your rested state does not tolerate friction the way it once did. And because of that, what remains is naturally supportive. The subconscious notices this immediately. It stops preparing for resistance. It stops bracing for disappointment. It begins to expect ease, not as a reward, but as a baseline. You do not need to define what you are attracting. The subconscious already knows what feels right. It filters gently. It selects quietly. It aligns you with what matches your internal pace. Rested energy does not rush. It does not overextend. It does not settle for tension. It allows what is aligned to approach at its own speed. This is why things begin to feel more natural, why outcomes no longer feel forced, why connections feel less draining, why opportunities feel less intimidating. You are not manifesting through desire now. You are manifesting through state. And state is more stable than intention. Sleep reinforces this state deeply. Every moment of rest teaches your system that ease is sustainable, that nothing collapses when you slow down. That support does not disappear when you stop trying. As this understanding settles, attraction becomes effortless. Not because you want less, but because you need less control. You may notice that what comes to you now feels familiar rather than exciting, comfortable rather than overwhelming, grounded rather than dramatic. This is alignment, choosing stability over intensity. Your life adjusts accordingly. What enters stays longer. What leaves does so without disruption. Everything moves with less friction. Sleep deepens further. Thoughts thin out. Awareness softens. The subconscious continues to calibrate without interruption. You do not need to hold onto this state. It holds itself. The more you rest, the more natural it becomes. The more natural it becomes, the more life mirrors it. You remain asleep now, calm and undisturbed, and in this rest, attraction continues, quietly matching your pace, your openness, your ease, without effort, without strain, without asking. There is a quiet realization settling in now, one that does not need words to be understood. Nothing about you needs repair. Nothing about this moment is wrong. There is no hidden flaw waiting to be corrected before life can respond. The idea of fixing begins to dissolve. Not because things are perfect, but because perfection was never the requirement. The pressure to improve, to adjust, to become something else loosens its grip, and in its place, a gentle acceptance spreads. Your subconscious receives this message clearly. It understands that safety does not come from constant self-evaluation, that worth does not depend on effort, that being is enough. When nothing needs to be fixed, tension releases at a deeper level. The body stops scanning for what is wrong. The mind stops rehearsing what should change. Energy that was tied up in correction becomes available for rest. This is not giving up on growth. It is removing the belief that growth must come from dissatisfaction. It is allowing change to arise from stability instead of strain. You are not overlooking problems. You are simply no longer defining yourself by them. And that distinction matters. Sleep becomes softer here, more spacious. There is no internal voice pointing things out, no commentary running in the background, just presence, quiet, unburdened presence. The subconscious takes this as permission to stop looping old narratives, permission to release self-judgment, permission to exist without self-monitoring. When nothing needs to be fixed, the future feels less conditional. You do not have to earn ease. You do not have to qualify for support. You do not have to become someone else to receive what aligns. This understanding settles deeply now, not as a belief you repeat, but as a state your system remembers. Sleep carries this state gently, sealing it not with effort, but with familiarity. The more familiar it feels, the more natural it becomes. You may not remember thinking this. You may not remember hearing it, but the subconscious will remember the feeling, the relief of not needing to change to be okay. From this place, alignment becomes softer. Attraction becomes cleaner. Life responds without friction. You continue to sleep now deeply and peacefully. And in this rest, the understanding remains quiet, stable, unquestioned. Nothing needs to be fixed. There is a gentle permission unfolding now, one that does not need to be spoken aloud to be real. You are allowed to receive, not later, not after effort, not after proving anything. Now, this permission does not come with conditions. It does not ask for struggle. It does not require sacrifice. It is simple, quiet, and unconditional. And your subconscious understands it immediately. Receiving without struggle feels unfamiliar at first. The body may hesitate. The mind may wonder if something is missing, but there is nothing missing here. This is what ease feels like when it is safe. You are not taking anything away from anyone. You are not skipping steps. You are not bypassing growth. You are simply allowing support to reach you without resistance. The nervous system relaxes into this understanding. It no longer braces for the cost of receiving. It no longer prepares for loss after gain. It learns that good things do not require repayment through effort. This is a deep recalibration, not intellectual, not emotional, physical, cellular. Sleep holds this permission gently, allowing it to settle without disruption. There is no urgency to accept it fully tonight. Even partial acceptance is enough. The subconscious will complete the process naturally. You may notice a soft warmth or openness in the chest, a loosening in the shoulders, a quiet sigh the body did not realize it was holding. These are signs of receiving becoming safe. Struggle often creates identity. It gives the mind something to hold onto. But now, identity softens. You are not defined by effort. You are not measured by endurance. You are allowed to be supported. Receiving does not make you passive. It makes you available. Available to timing. Available to alignment. Available to outcomes that do not exhaust you. The subconscious records this carefully. It notes that nothing collapses when you stop trying, that safety remains, that stability increases, that ease does not lead to loss. This changes what you expect from life. You no longer anticipate struggle as the entry fee. You no longer assume difficulty as proof of value. You allow simplicity to be sufficient. Sleep deepens further now. Awareness softens. Words fade into sensation. The permission to receive continues to integrate quietly. You do not need to remember this permission when you wake. The body will remember. The breath will remember. The nervous system will respond differently to opportunities, to support, to ease. You continue to rest now, undisturbed and safe. And in this rest, the permission remains active, steady, gentle, unquestioned. You are allowed to receive without struggle. There is a soft shift in how your desires feel now. They no longer sit at a distance. They are no longer imagined as something far away, waiting on the other side of time. They feel closer, not because they are being pulled toward you, but because they no longer feel unfamiliar. Familiarity settles quietly. It does not excite the mind. It calms it. When something feels familiar, the body stops bracing. The nervous system stops preparing for impact. There is no spike of anticipation, no tightening around hope. Your desires begin to feel like part of your environment rather than something separate from you. Like something that belongs here, like something that fits naturally into your life instead of disrupting it. The subconscious responds strongly to familiarity. It trusts what feels normal. It allows what feels expected. And now, your desires no longer feel like exceptions. They feel like extensions. This does not make them less meaningful. It makes them more accessible. What feels familiar does not require justification. It does not need to be chased. It does not trigger resistance. Sleep deepens this sense of closeness. As the conscious mind quiets, the subconscious updates its internal map. What once felt distant is reclassified. What once felt unlikely is neutralized. What once felt conditional now feels allowed. There is no rush attached to this, no pressure to make anything happen. Familiarity removes urgency, and when urgency disappears, things move more freely. You may notice that thinking about what you want no longer creates tension. There is no surge of wanting, no ache of absence, just a calm recognition this fits. This is how alignment stabilizes, not through excitement, not through obsession, but through normalization. The body accepts what feels normal without question. The subconscious allows what feels familiar without debate. And now, your desires rest inside that category. They no longer activate doubt. They no longer trigger comparison. They no longer demand reassurance. They simply exist, quietly integrated into your sense of what belongs in your life. Sleep continues to hold this gently. Each breath reinforces the feeling of closeness. Each moment of rest confirms that nothing needs to be reached for. You are not imagining your desires anymore. You are coexisting with the idea of them, and coexistence is powerful because it removes separation. There is no emotional distance now, no sense of one day, no waiting energy, just a calm familiarity that feels steady and unremarkable in the best way. You continue to sleep deeply and peacefully, and as you do, this familiarity settles further, making room for what belongs to arrive naturally, without disruption, without resistance, without effort. The mind drifts now in a way that feels natural and unforced. Thoughts no longer complete themselves. They soften midway and dissolve before they become anything. Awareness loosens its grip, not disappearing, just becoming less defined. This is the space where words fade, but meaning remains, where the message no longer needs language to stay present. The conscious mind rests. The subconscious listens without effort. You do not need to stay focused. You do not need to stay aware. Even drifting away is part of the process, especially drifting away. The message settles beneath thought now. It moves past the surface layers of understanding. It no longer relies on memory or repetition. It becomes embedded as sensation, as assumption, as quiet knowing. Sleep deepens again, not abruptly, gently, like sinking into warm water that supports you without effort. If fragments of words still appear, they arrive slower, softer. They echo instead of demand attention, and even when they fade completely, nothing is lost. The subconscious does not require constant input. It integrates best when left undisturbed, when silence becomes the container, when rest becomes the signal. You may feel suspended now, between waking and sleep, between thought and stillness. This is not emptiness. It is receptivity. In this state, the message no longer feels separate from you. It does not sound like a voice. It feels like something you already know, something you do not need to remember because it has already been absorbed. The body remains calm and heavy. Breath continues quietly. Nothing pulls you back to the surface. Even if awareness flickers, the integration continues underneath. Even if the mind wanders, the message stays. This is why effort is unnecessary. This is why attention is optional. The deeper part of you is already listening, Sleep holds everything gently now. Thought dissolves, silence expands, and within that silence, alignment continues without interruption. You rest, and the message remains steady, intact, and fully received, long after words fade away. Silence settles in more fully now, not an empty silence, a living one, a quiet that holds everything without saying anything at all. Words are no longer needed here, and because of that, nothing interferes. Manifestation does not pause when sound fades. It continues in the same way your heart continues to beat when you are not listening to it. Effortlessly, automatically, faithfully. The subconscious works best in this kind of quiet, when there is no instruction to follow, no guidance to interpret, no signal to evaluate, just space. This is where integration deepens, not through repetition, not through affirmation, but through absence, through rest so complete that the system reorganizes itself naturally. You do not need to stay awake for this. You do not need to hear anything else. Even if awareness drifts far away, the process remains active. Silence becomes the carrier now, holding intention without pressure, holding alignment without force, holding change without disruption. The body responds to this silence by sinking further into rest. Muscles soften in places you did not know were tense. Breath slows even more, smooth and unbroken. The nervous system recognizes that nothing is required. In this state, manifestation is no longer something happening to you. It is something happening as you, quietly woven into how your system operates. There is no separation here, no observer and outcome, no wanting and having, just a steady unfolding beneath awareness. Even if the mind briefly surfaces, it finds nothing to grasp, no words to follow, no thoughts to finish, and so it drifts back down easily. Silence remains, supportive, complete. This is where trust stabilizes, not as a belief, as a condition, a default. You do not check whether things are working. You do not wonder if something was missed. The absence of questioning allows continuity. Sleep is deep now, the kind of sleep that does not need to be protected, the kind that allows systems to reset and realign on their own. Manifestation continues here without interruption, not because you are focused, but because you are not. Silence carries everything forward, through the night, through the deeper phases of rest, through moments of complete unawareness. Nothing needs to happen next. Nothing needs to be said. Nothing needs to be remembered. You remain asleep deeply and peacefully. And even in this silence, especially in this silence, alignment continues, uninterrupted, complete, and already in motion. You are held now in a way that requires nothing from you, not attention, not effort, not understanding, just rest. There is a sense of being supported from all sides, beneath you, around you, through you, as if sleep itself has arms, as if the night knows how to keep you safe without being asked. Your body responds to this immediately. Muscles soften more deeply. Breath settles into a slow, steady rhythm. The nervous system stops scanning entirely. There is nothing to protect against here. Being held does not mean being restrained. It means being free to let go, free to sink, free to disappear into rest without fear of losing anything important. The subconscious recognizes this holding as safety, and when safety is present, defenses dissolve naturally. Walls lower, guards rest, the need to stay alert fades away. You do not need to watch over yourself tonight. Nothing will be missed. Nothing will be taken. Nothing will fall apart while you sleep. This holding is constant and quiet. It does not shift when you drift deeper. It does not loosen when awareness fades. It remains steady even when you are completely unaware of it. You are not alone in this space, even though there are no voices, no sounds, no thoughts. There is a presence of steadiness, calm, neutral, unchanging. The body trusts this instinctively. It knows when it is safe to rest fully. And now, it rests without reservation. Sleep deepens again, not suddenly, gently, like being lowered into warmth that fits perfectly around you. In this depth, the idea of separation dissolves. There is no inside and outside to manage, no boundary to guard, just continuity. Being held does not interrupt manifestation. It allows it, because when you are held, you stop gripping. And when you stop gripping, things can move freely. The subconscious continues its quiet work here, not actively, not intentionally, simply by being in a state where alignment is uninterrupted. Nothing asks for your attention. Nothing pulls you upward. Nothing disturbs this rest. Even if dreams pass through, they float gently. They do not disturb the foundation of calm beneath them. They come and go without impact. You are held through every phase of sleep, through stillness, through movement, through silence, through forgetting. There is no moment tonight where you are unsupported, no moment where you need to wake up to protect yourself, no moment where you are exposed. This holding continues beyond awareness, beyond memory, beyond the need to know. You remain asleep now, deeply and peacefully. And in this rest, you are held completely, safe, supported, uninterrupted, as everything continues to unfold exactly as it should. Tomorrow begins to take shape quietly now, without pulling you out of sleep. Not as a plan, not as an image, but as a feeling forming gently beneath awareness. There's a lightness moving toward you, not excitement, not anticipation, just ease, the kind that makes morning feel less heavy before it even arrives. You are not preparing for tomorrow. You are not rehearsing it. Your subconscious is simply allowing it to feel simpler, less charged, less demanding. This lightness does not promise perfection. It does not guarantee outcomes. It offers something more stable, a calmer way of meeting whatever comes. The body senses this first. There is less tension stored for the next day, less bracing, less internal pressure to perform, to manage, to hold everything together. Tomorrow does not feel like a test. It does not feel like something to get through. It feels like continuation, smooth, unforced, manageable. You may not know why it feels this way when you wake. You may not connect it to sleep. You may not analyze it at all. And that is exactly how it works best. The subconscious carries this forward seamlessly. It brings calm into moments that used to feel rushed. It brings clarity into moments that used to feel cluttered. It brings space where there used to be urgency. Small things feel easier. Decisions feel lighter. Pauses come naturally. You move at a pace that fits instead of pushing against time. Even challenges meet you differently. They do not loom. They do not overwhelm. They take up less internal space. This is not because tomorrow is different. It is because you are. The rested state you are in now extends beyond sleep. It lingers. It softens edges. It changes how you meet the day before you consciously engage with it. You wake up slightly changed, not transformed, not reinvented, just lighter, as if something unnecessary was set down during the night. This feeling does not need protection. It does not need explanation. It holds itself. Sleep continues to cradle this ease gently, sealing it in without effort, letting it settle as part of your natural rhythm. You remain asleep now, deeply and undisturbed. And as you do, tomorrow continues to approach quietly, lighter than before, softer than expected, without needing to announce itself at all. There is a quiet trust settling in now, one that does not require reassurance. You are no longer checking, no longer scanning for signs, no longer measuring progress against expectation. The need to monitor has softened completely. Trust does not feel like confidence here. It feels like absence. The absence of doubt, the absence of urgency, the absence of the impulse to look ahead and ask if everything is on track. Your system has learned something important. Nothing needs to be watched for it to continue. Nothing needs to be verified to remain true. What is unfolding does not pause when you stop paying attention. This releases a deep layer of tension. The subtle effort of monitoring dissolves. The background hum of, "Is it working?" fades away. Energy that was once spent checking returns to rest. You are no longer standing guard over your life. You are no longer responsible for ensuring outcomes. You are allowed to step back completely. The subconscious recognizes this as safety. When there is no monitoring, there is no fear of missing something. When there is no checking, there is no anticipation of loss. Everything feels self-sustaining. This trust does not ask you to believe anything. It simply removes the impulse to doubt. And without doubt, the system remains open and uninterrupted. Sleep deepens again. Thoughts become rare. When they appear, they do not hook your attention. They dissolve before forming meaning. You are not waiting for results. You are not wondering what comes next. There is no internal movement toward the future. Only presence resting in itself. This is where trust stabilizes permanently, not as a mindset, as a condition the subconscious will carry this forward into waking life. It will prevent unnecessary checking. It will soften the impulse to control. It will allow timing to unfold without interference. You may notice later that you stop watching for change, that you forget to look for confirmation, that outcomes arrive without buildup. This is not forgetfulness. It is freedom. Sleep continues uninterrupted. Nothing pulls you back to the surface. Nothing requires awareness. You rest fully now. And in this rest, trust remains steady and complete, unquestioned, unmonitored, and already sustaining everything on its own. Rest completes the cycle now, gently and naturally. There is no sense of ending, no signal that something stops here, only a feeling of continuity, as if everything simply settles into place and continues on its own. You are not arriving at a conclusion. You are dissolving into rest so complete that nothing needs to be carried forward consciously. The work is finished because there was never work to do. The alignment holds itself. Sleep remains deep and unbroken. Awareness drifts without direction. Time loses its shape entirely. There is no before, no after, only this steady state of rest. What has integrated does not need reinforcement. It does not fade when silence remains. It does not weaken when attention disappears. It is already part of how your system operates. The subconscious continues quietly, effortlessly, without instruction. Patterns stay aligned. Expectations remain soft. Trust stays intact. Nothing reverses. Nothing slips away. There is no need to wake up remembering anything. No message to recall. No insight to hold on to. Everything important is already embedded beneath thought. Sleep carries this forward through every cycle of the night, through stillness, through dreaming, through complete forgetting. Nothing interrupts what is settled. When morning eventually comes, it will not feel like a transition. It will feel like continuation, as if nothing ended while you slept, because nothing did. Rest has completed its role, not by doing more, but by allowing everything to settle fully. You remain asleep now, deeply and peacefully, and even as the night continues, everything remains aligned, complete, uninterrupted, and already unfolding exactly as it should.